We're here at Genelec with Will.
Hey,
How's it going, Will? Yes. This thing. What is happening here? What is all this? And
let's start at the bottom and go to the top. All right,
okay,
so this is just a base. So if we need to get these things elevated up over like a meter bridge or something like that,
got it.
or when we come to trade shows, we want to make them look bigger. Well, we put these things on here. All right, this bottom unit has two 15-inch drivers in it.
Woo!
Okay.
Actually, you can see them. You can see them from the side here.
Yeah, and this bottom box is a ported box. There's a port on the back side. This 15 and these two 15s is powered by this lower amplifier.
Okay.
All right.
So that's that.
So those amp modules are about 3 kilowatts each, and it just depends on how things get split out. Okay.
3 kilowatts each.
Well, it's Class D, so
Right,
the
that's
numbers
just-
are going to be a little bit elevated. but
Okay.
That's the good news is that they're cool.
Yeah, they run cool.
The other amplifiers are very, very quiet. You can put these amplifiers in a control room that's, NC rated. You won't hear
Got
it.
it.
The top amplifier gets these 4 5-inch drivers and then this coax here. So there's basically 1,200 watts on these two, 1,200 watts on these two.
Okay.
And then the rest of the amplification is divided between this mid-range and the high compression tweeter.
Okay. So I've seen coaxial before on various Genelec speakers. What is happening with these drivers? I'm very
we
curious
like
about.
to refer to this waveguide as a coaxial waveguide because these drivers operate pretty much between, they may go as low as 200,
Okay.
but they don't go any higher than 500. So their operating bandwidth is about 1 octave. The spacing of the drivers in consideration of the bandwidth that they operate in means that these 4 drivers actually operate as one driver, and they're coaxial in the waveguide. So this whole waveguide behaves as a coax because you've got these guys that are behaving like a big driver,
Okay.
and then you have this guy which is centrally located.
This might be a silly question because I understand why most companies will use a waveguide for directivity. I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around using multiple drivers around it.
Well,
So is it a smoother handoff from this size to this?
Well, what would be the alternative? The alternative would be to put a big ass driver in the middle of this whole thing,
Yeah.
and it would still be a coax. Coax doesn't mean 2. It just means that they're coaxial
Right.
in performance.
Right.
So that would really complicate the whole. If you had let's say you had a big 12-inch driver, another 15,
Yeah.
as covering that same bandwidth. Okay. Well, from a manufacturing standpoint, that'd be pretty tricky to do. It'd be highly complicated, and we wouldn't have the benefit of this waveguide. So the idea was to be able to have a bandwidth that is displaced by the half wavelength of the area that you're trying to cover. So 1K is 13 inches, 500 is 250 or something like this. So we've got enough spacing between these drivers that they behave like one big driver. So even as you move off axis, the coloration doesn't change. And that's what you're really trying to get to.
If I were to look at a polar plot of this speaker, what is the radiation pattern on this? How wide is it approximately?
60 degrees?
60. So okay.
Maybe 45, I don't know. I don't have,
Okay,
I
okay.
don't have the brochure embedded in my head. But it's the same whether you're vertical or horizontal. That's what makes it coaxial. Right?
That's the
So
benefit.
the sweet spot for this product, I'd back up a little bit. When you have a small speaker that's 2 drivers, tweeter, woofer, and it's only this big, people will say, wow, it's got a really wide sweet spot. And I'm like, I'm not really sure about that because you might have a wide sweet spot maybe above 1500 hertz. But as you go lower and lower, that sweet spot is going to collapse because of the interaction of the room and the distance that you're at and the size of the bass driver. Your directivity is lost at that point.
Yeah.
So, but as you start to get bigger and bigger products, you now have real estate to be able to make that sweet spot go lower and lower and lower in frequency response. So when you compare something like the whooper stand with the 8361, and you compare it to this, you know, if you're a good listener and you close your eyes and you get those 40 bits of data like moving down your brainstem, you know, you can really focus on the fact that these guys are a beast in terms of their directivity down to about 250, 200.
Oh.
It's
Yeah.
you know, and this guy's going to take over from about 100 to 200. It depends. And then these guys down here operate below 100.
That's amazing.
So we don't call this the subwoofer, but generally it's operating in that range.
Yeah, unfortunately, very few companies actually talk about directivity.
Yeah.
It may show frequency response or frequency range, but you guys are showing.
Well, we've
frequency
always
response.
been big on.
I mean,
the DCW has been part of our heritage since 1985 or so, when the 1022 first came out. That was the old fiberglass thing that people used to call the Darth Vader. You know, it was a very popular product because it had such good off-axis performance, very predictable, and the company's been focused on that for years.
Is that why a lot of the speakers are shaped the way they are?
The shaping over time, you know, when we got to 2000, that's when we came out with the 8000 series, and we went to it was our second generation of aluminum products.
Yeah.
And we had the rounded edges so that the diffraction was kept to a minimum. You know, at some of those lower frequencies that would spill over to the edge of the
Edge diffraction.
yeah. So that was there for diffraction avoidance, put it that way. The shape of the cabinets themselves is rounded just for more rigidity.
Ah, okay.
These are not, there's no aluminum here except for this guy, but there's plenty of bracing inside, so
Oh, yeah,
it's
this
not
thing-
going to shake itself apart. It takes at least 3 people to pick up each of these modules and to
That's
get them in
crazy.
place. You might, I don't know if you can notice this, but this is on a slight incline.
Oh,
And when you buy the unit, you have a choice of either putting it flat down, which is probably pretty popular if you don't have the bottom base on. But if you get them elevated, then we included with each system is a 4-degree incline and an 8-degree incline.
okay. Are these available currently or not
yeah.
yet? They are?
Yeah, we're shipping.
Okay.
We're shipping.
And I know people are going to ask what the price is.
In the U.S., just a little bit over 60,000 a pair.
60,000 a pair.
A pair. Yeah.
All right.
Now I had a group of engineers that came in and listened, and A-listers, and they were like, "Oh, these things really sound good. How much are they?" And I said, "Well, they're about 60,000 a pair." And they were like, "That's it?"
Oh.
And I was like, "Well, yeah, that's
just-
it."
that's
You
just
know?
one of-
I mean, a lot of people say Genelecs are like too expensive. It's like, no, we're not.
Yeah.
You know, you can
That's
buy,
their watch.
You can pay a lot more and get a lot less. I mean, just like the window business, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, in general, the Genelec's a great product in terms of value.
Yeah.
Because it's going to last more than a
Well,
lifetime.
I think what you're paying for, you know, I've never reviewed a Genelec product myself, but I've seen the measurements, and I think what you're paying for is the engineering behind it.
Yeah.
It's not just a high price for the fact of it's a high price for just to shock people.
No.
It actually, there's a lot going into it in the design of the product, and the measurements show it. So it's backed up in the actual measurements and the fact that everybody uses them too.
So you didn't ask about why are they shaped like this?
Yes, why are they,
I mean, this is a 5-inch driver, right?
yes, why?
That is the diaphragm. Some people look at this and say, well, is that a port? No, this is the diaphragm of the driver.
Okay, is this a surround here?
That's the surround.
Okay.
This vibrates and makes sound.
Okay, so
why
you're
is it-
minimizing,
why is it concave, like a normal 5-inch driver would be?
I don't know, I'm probably something directivity related.
Exactly. So if you have the lower operating bandwidth of this guy, is going to tend to be a bit more omnidirectional, and it's going to spill down this way. If it hits this cavity, what's that going to cause? Diffraction. You can't.
Oh,
have
because it's coming here, and then if it
goes
went back
it
in,
goes in. Yeah.
then that would
And
cause
you'll
an
see
issue.
that on the impulse response, clear as day.
Yeah.
So they kind of chewed on this for a while, and this is like one of the things that
Of
makes
course.
Genelec such. I mean, for me,
And even the screws, right? The screws got to make sure the screws are flush.
I don't think that hurt. That's an industrial design piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
But this is the part that always
That's
fascinates
cool,
me,
though.
is that they always tend to come up with something which, like, teaches you something.
Well, I was wondering why this was flared out slightly
That's
here,
just to
and
make-
just so to
Just
right over the top of that, huh?
they modeled this with and without.
Wow.
And they chose this.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, it I've been with the company 28 years,
Uh-huh.
and every new product always blows me away.
Thank you to computers and smart people.
Yeah, exactly. We love it. There you go.
That's a good combination, right?
So that's the 8381. It's
Very cool.
It's not real easy to set up, but if you got 3 or 4 people, it works.
You're awesome, Will. Thank you
Yeah,
for
man.
taking the time to show me this and share with these guys. I'm sure they're gonna like to watch this and nerd out with us.
Cool, man.
All right, thanks.
Thanks a lot. Have a great show.
Thank you. I'm gonna let you finish this convention. First, I want to tell you about the spatial audio calibration toolkit.
That's right. It is the one and only best-selling, world's first Dolby Atmos calibration disc. So make sure you go to spatialcd.com. We'll do a NAMM special, NAMM 10.
NAMM 10.
NAMM 10. Get 10% off. Use the code NAMM10.
There you go.